A Twist in Time, Chapter 17. One condition. Sakura was the kind of person who had a natural aversion to getting into trouble. She was the type to show up at least 15 minutes early for everything. She respected her elders, and her personal goal in life was to heal people and improve their quality of life. Besides that one time she skipped taijutsu lessons to study for an upcoming history test, she was a perfect straight-A student who hadn't broken a single rule in all her academy years. The most defiant thing that she had ever done in her life, in fact, was love and chase after a nest-ranked criminal. But even then, she chased him only because she believed there had to be some good left in him somewhere. So, needless to say, it was a little out of character for Sakura to wind up in prison. Sitting on a tall metal chair, she found herself in one of the village's interrogation rooms, arms shackled around the back of her chair, Cass strapped to its leg with tight rubber bands. The room was dark, aside from the dim, yellow light trickling in from under the closed door on her left, was illuminated the array of torture devices lining the walls. As promised, the two cloaked men escorted her to Hokage Tower, but upon their arrival, took a detour down the tunnel connected to the village's prison. In all honesty, Sakura was too shocked to process how nervous she ought to be in circumstances like this. She couldn't afford to be interrogated, not now that a war was just around the corner. She simply couldn't find out the truth about her time travel mission at a time like this. She didn't know how she'd cope with the repercussions, let alone predict what they would be. Thus, then the large wooden door creaked open. She squinted towards the opening as the light poured in, trying to determine if her interrogator had arrived. Seeing he had, the door slammed shut, soon followed by a glaring white light being flicked on and angled directly at Sakura's face. She winced and blinked into the brightness, trying to make out the silhouette of the person before her, who was easing himself down to a chair on the other side of the light. "Sorry about the restraints," said a distinctly familiar male voice while he blindly scanned her surroundings. "It's protocol." Her eyes finally started to adjust a little as he glimpsed long blonde hair. The man spoke again. "Ibiki Moriono is the head of Konoha's torture and interrogation force, as you might be aware. But today he has other matters to attend to, so instead I, Inoichi Yamanaka, am here to sit in his place and have a little chat with you." That's how she recognized his voice. Yamanaka. This man was Ino's father. Sakura had never been particularly close to Yamanaka, but she certainly knew of him, given the years he spent playing in his yard and having slumber parties with his daughter. They never had a proper conversation. First, Sakura felt a surge of relief at the sight of his familiar blue eyes, even though he was likely required to detach himself from all personal connections to his subjects. He said they were going to have a little chat, didn't he? That was certainly a better alternative to whatever torture devices the famous militant Ibiki would have used. But then Sakura recalled the bloodline trait that Yamanaka clan was known for, mind manipulation, and all her conflicts drained away in a flash. "Alright, Sakura," Inoichi said while rubbing his chin and assessing a document on a wooden table in front of him. It was still quite difficult for Sakura to make out the details of his face through the piercing light. "I collected the results from the fingerprints, blood tests, saliva sample, chakra scans you did on your way in, and everything seems to match up just fine." His voice trailed away at the sound of flipping papers. Sakura presumed he was reviewing her test results once more. All those tests had been a blur to Sakura, really. At the time, her mind had been reeling through all the possible reasons she would be interrogated in the first place. The first thought that came to mind was the hospital break-in. The night that she and Sasuke snuck into the unauthorized wing to use an MRI machine to scan her brain. Did she accidentally leave some sort of DNA sample behind? If anything, she was worried Sasuke would end up getting caught, given the blood his arm had dripped onto the floor. Or were they caught by a security camera as they booked it out of there? Sakura just knew he had been reckless by sprinting right past the other hospital workers. That in itself had Sketchy written all over it. Or, worst case scenario, did someone find a time travel scroll, currently disguised as a pair of red underwear? She's been staying over at Sasuke's place every night for the past week, leaving her bedroom completely unattended, aside from the treasure team had laid out. Could someone have taken advantage of her absence and done a little snooping in their drawers? Yes, so your test results match up with your medical records, although your chakra reserves seem to have grown exponentially. Your chakra signature is constant enough. Now we can move on to the questioning. Sakura heard the papers ruffle once again. Alright, Sakura. You were born of civilian parents with no exceptional inherited skill in chakra control, correct? Yes, she answered with a nod. It states in your file that you haven't had a single relative with ninja status. Now, can you please tell me what drew you to the ninja arts in the first place, particularly the medical arts? Sakura swallowed hard, suddenly feeling uncoordinated from the intensity of the light. It would be safe for her to answer this question honestly, wouldn't it? Well, at first, I begged my parents to let me enroll in the academy because all my friends were going. I didn't have many skills when I started out, but I studied hard, and it turned out I had a natural aptitude for chakra control. But I still wasn't like my friends. I didn't have a special bloodline trait or physical strength. One day I got tired of feeling so incompetent, so I decided to pick up a new hobby on the side. I knew I had the memory and work ethic for it. Mine carried her back to when she approached Tsunade and asked to be taken under her wing. She'd been so frustrated after the years of trailing behind her teammates, being protected, of feeling utterly useless, of watching them get hurt and sacrifice themselves for her. It was then she realized there was a way she could help her friends. If she wasn't capable of mastering offensive powers, then she would be directing her attention elsewhere. So her passive for healing was born. You know, I know a lot of people give Sakura flack for being useless and not being able to catch up to everybody else. But two things. One, how's that so different from some of the other characters who can't catch up? Like, say, Kuwabara or such. I mean, if we try to say, oh, well, Sakura never took down one of the big bads, neither did Kuwabara, or if we try to point out, well, they never really had that makes of an impact on the fight, I'd like to say, neither did Sanosuke Sagara. As a matter of fact, if we look on the big thing, Sakura's had more effect on the last battle than a lot of the other female leads in her category. But ignoring all of that, let's look at some of the stuff she has done. She's been a great mech, a person who has helped heal several. Actually helped shield Kaguya. And against the normal Luke, handles herself pretty well, even better than a lot of her other peers. So, really, if you look at it as a whole, the uselessness just comes from not being able to match gods. As it happened, Tsunade has some particularly powerful offensive skills to pass on to her apprentice, too. Right then, said Onichi, while jotting down down his notes. Do you have any affiliation with Lady Tsunade Senju, legendary scion? Oh! For a fleeting moment, she panicked. Sakura wondered if Inoichi was reading her mind. He couldn't be. Could he? Sakura didn't know the extent of the Yamanaka's clan's mind control techniques. But maybe, just to be on the safe side, she would try filtering her thoughts and studying them out completely. She's my inspiration, Sakura said, using her effort to keep her voice from wavering. I've studied her techniques thoroughly, and I hope to be half as influential as she is one day. And that was the absolute truth. Well, minus a few other insignificant details. I see. Inoichi mused while noting something down. Okay, now, I'll fire out just a few more questions before I take you upstairs. From there on out, the questions weren't half bad. They were rather generic, in fact. They were similar to the questions Sakura filled out on her applications for identification cards and passports. He asked her whether she moved, where she traveled in the past year, whether she experienced any serious accidents or a medical crisis recently, and other questions of that nature. Sakura stuck to answering the questions as she would have in her past life. Except, of course, when she was asked a question on her relationship status, which she was able to answer on behalf of both her lives. It seemed that single no matter what universe she was in. Should we tell her? Excellent. He said once he was through the question. Sayings pounded suspiciously. Now I'll see you to your unbound. Then I will escort you to Konoha's console room. The conference room, on the highest floor of Hokage Tower, was a much more comfortable arrangement than the interrogation room had been. Final long shot. Sakura found herself sitting on a dark brown leather couch, facing a group of council members, sitting along a table on a risen platform. Although she would take this over President any day, the room had an unnaturally constricting feel to it. The high ceilings made it too spacious. The lack of windows made the air too still. And the way all the council members were facing made Sakura feel like the real test was just beginning. She paused, taking the faces before her. The only person she knew was Sarutobi, Konoha's Hokage, who was seated in the middle. He was adorned in his long white Hokage robes and matching headdress, under which his aging face and beady eyes were directed at one of the other council members. She vaguely recognized the other three from formal events and important executive meetings she attended with Tsunade on that occasion. Sarutobi's right, according to the placeholders, sat Honora Mitokado and Konoha Utane. And to his left sat a grim-looking man with short, dark hair named Danzo Asshole. Weird. I meant Danzo Bastard. Danzo Piece of Danzo Shimura. Well, I hate Danzo that much. Danzo. Now that name rang a bell. Sakura couldn't put her finger on the context of which she knew it. But she suspected that Tsunade's main complaints about how the council members were trying to ruin her fun were likely sources. Why so tense, Miss Haruno? The Hokage asked as a tiny smile graced his lips. Make yourself comfortable and we'll begin. Sakura leaned back a couple of inches, attempted to unstiffen a little, but she kept her mouth firmly shut. What was the old man playing at? Do you think this was a joke? Or was this a strategy of some sort? To soften her up so she'd be more willing to disclose information about herself? Then again, when Sakura thought about it, Ina's father really hadn't put the hard-ass interrogator persona she expected either. What kind of tactics were these? Right, well, we called you here to discuss a particularly unusual situation that has been brought to our attention, said the Hokage, lacing his fingers together, resting his elbows on the table. I have a special interest in your medical expertise. It's unprecedented, you know, for someone your age to have mastered such elite skills. I suppose it is, Sakura said, her tone rather flat. It was taking a huge portion of her concentration to keep her voice from catching. Just wasn't it? This is where her medicine got exposed to the council, and then eventually to the entire village. What would become of her then? People found out she was for the future. Well, they never treated her normally, that was for certain. Certainly it wouldn't be kept a secret either, meaning she was likely to die. Tsunade explicitly told her, on the night that she sent Sakura back in time, that if word to her connection to the time travel scroll got in the wrong hands, she could get killed for it. Wait! The double doors on the wall behind Sakura were thrown open. She spun around to find Ayame, her supervisor at the hospital, and bursting into the conference room. A pair of Jonin security guards were lingering in the doorway. Sakura pursued him and unlocked the doors for her. I hope I haven't missed anything, said a breathless Ayame as she approached the couch. Brown hair twisted to a messy bun on top of her head. She apparently discarded her white coat, but she was still wearing a green scrubs from work. You're just in time. Please, have a seat next to Miss Haruno, Sarutobi said kindly. Danzo didn't seem to share the same sentiments. It was you who called for this meeting, wasn't it? He asked, the corners of his mouth twisting a frown. What is the purpose of all this? Sakura froze. You? She breathed, swiveling around to face her supervisor, now perched on the couch. Sakura couldn't believe it. Ayame was the one onto her. All this time she'd come off as so genuine and supportive, but as Sakura learned throughout her ninja career, those qualities didn't make a person any less dangerous. But how did Ayame catch her? Sakura must have slipped up somehow at the hospital, perhaps during the hospital break-in. Maybe it was earlier today. Was he was feeling the boy in the emergency wing. Or maybe the blazed strength of 100 seals already visible on her forehead. Great. Why didn't she ever listen to Eno about the importance of keeping a compact mirror on her at all times? Yes! Ayami said before turning to look at Sakura sheepishly. I'm terribly sorry I didn't warn you beforehand, but we really don't have time to waste, and I don't care how old you are or what world you came from. I need you. The village needs you! Sakura's mind was racing. What the hell's going on? You said her resemblance to Tsunade is clear as day, isn't it? Simon Kohara was eyeing Sakura through dark, narrowed eyes. It is, and there's no mistaking it, Ayame said. Sakura couldn't understand why she sounded positively thrilled. Did she really want her intern to get prosecuted that badly? She works with such professionalism and precision that it would be out of our minds not to promote her. Wait, what? Sir told me he was a lion sigh. As I told you earlier, he said, shaking his head, we simply can't have a Ghanaian serve on the board, let alone practice as a licensed doctor. It's unheard of. It could be damaging for the reputation of Konoha's medical system's governing body. But sir, Ayami pleaded, leaning so forward as on a casting might tumble off. I must insist. I don't know where she could have learned it from, but just today, Sakura conducted an advanced medical procedure all by herself, followed our hospital's protocol to a T. Please, sir, we're understaffed. Couldn't you give her a chance? Sakura's heart was drumming in her ears. Well, instead of guilt, she realized Ayami hadn't sent her out for a punitive interrogation. No, it was just the opposite, wasn't it? Ayami wanted to promote Sakura, despite her young age and low ninja status. Particularly, it was so unheard of she needed to be consult the High Council. Was that all this really was about? Was Inonichi's interrogation nothing but security clearance? And now about her time travel mission at all? Don't you find it a little unusual that someone so young and talented could turn up now, right when you need her? Drawled Danzo as he rubbed his thumb and forefinger along his chin. Sakura's sigh of relief caught in her throat. A little, Saratobi agreed thoughtfully, while surveying her over laced fingers. And let's not forget how her abilities have been relatively dormant until very recently, it seems. But she cleared Ulysses' assessment, irritated Horror, leafing through the sheets of paper for him. He didn't detect anything unusual in her medical evaluation. But what was Sakura Uratuni? And Ayame seemed to be struggling to stay seated. Would you feel more comfortable with promoting Sakura as you were a higher rank? Sakura stared wide-eyed at her supervisor. It dawned on her that she recognized Ayame. She was certain now that an older version of this woman had been working under her in her former life. And here she was, defending Sakura before the High Council like her life depended on it. Sakura decided when she got out of this mess, she would buy Ayame the biggest bouquet of flowers she could get her hands on. And then somehow, everyone went back to her old life, she would reward the woman with a promotion of her own. Saratobi said, raising an eyebrow. Weren't you invited to participate in this year's exams, Miss Harno? Yes, she somehow managed to get out, despite the dryness in her throat. Paused for a moment before turning to catch the eyes of the elders. They all seemed to be communicating something through their stares. Sakura watched in earnest, mind whirling in and out of focus. Saratobi finally turned back and spoke again. What do you say to that, Sakura? Granted, you passed your medical exams. If you also graduate to Chunin, you may also work as a licensed medical ninja and take a position in the hospital's governing ward. Now, I don't mean for this to offend you, of course, but it will reflect poorly on the village to assign a Gedi in such a prominent position. And your participation in the exams would be a perfect opportunity for us to carefully observe the extent of these abilities you apparently possess. Hey, it's no different than having a Gedi as a Hokage. Sakura was frozen. Was this really happening? She glanced at Ayame, who was beaming at her, nodding encouragingly. Sakura truly wanted to share the enthusiasm, desperately even. Relief it was that she wasn't going to be tortured or thrown in jail. On the contrary, she was being handed just the job she needed on a silver platter. More than anything else, she wanted to accept the offer and stand up and shout, yes! Run straight to the academy, submit her tuning exams application. But the cards Sakura were dealt didn't allow her to simply do anything. No, she found herself saying, before she could stop herself. I'm afraid I must decline. Unless you can be a contestant. Although her voice was steady, she was feeling very small under scrutinizing gazes. A condition? Saratoga repeated. Eyes narrowed slightly. The others were watching her with expressions of utter bewilderment. But Sakura forced herself to ignore them. Because now's my only chance. And now that they might see her as a reputable young prodigy, it felt time to tell him what she had been meaning to tell him since that morning. And then the words slipped out. It felt like an out-buying experience. Like someone else was just speaking the entirety to them. The Soundfields must be thrown out of the exams. It seemed that the High Council members weren't into gasping tides. But during the horrible, bone-chilling silence that followed her request, Sakura actually wished they were. Why is that? Danzo asked calmly. Enzo's voice made Sakura's neck prickle uncomfortably. You do realize the registration deadline is today, Sakura, Saratobi said. The Soundfields participants are already in our village. The first exam is tomorrow morning. Shit! Tomorrow morning? So soon? Never mind that. We'll go back now to see our outrageous sounding claim on them. I've done some research, you see, she said, resting her hands on her neck and sustaining them. The Soundfields isn't really a village. In fact, it's a giant laboratory composed of various hideouts and bases scattered throughout the land. Her voice started to trail off a bit as she scanned the sea full of watchful eyes. Were any of them taking her seriously? Go on, prompted Koharu. All right, but some of them were willing to hear her out. Sakura inhaled sharply. The village was founded by Orochimaru, former teammate of my hero, Tsunade Senju. He created the village with the sole purpose of collecting ninjas for his deranged personal experiments. So you're claiming, said Oro slowly, that the Sound Village endorses human trafficking and human experimentation? Yes, Sakura said with a fervent nod. How do you know all this? Asked Saratobi, who was now exchanging a worried look with Danzo. Like I said, I've done my research, she responded honestly. I spent a lot of time reading books on Tsunade-sama and her former teammates. The medical practices in the Sound Village caught my interest. Since I learned about them, I've been terrified of the places and ninjas who come from there. There's no lie that Sakura has spent a significant amount of her previous life reading books on the Sound Village corruption. She wants to serve all those books have been written yet in this life. Sakura prayed he didn't ask her to produce a reference list. The High Council members were all exchanging meaningful glances and inaudible whispers. Sakura couldn't tell if any of them were in her favor. Her heart was still hammering against her chest. It just kept so tightly her knuckles were white. But she didn't get the Sound Village out of the exams. Konoha was in danger. These council members didn't believe her now. She didn't know what she could do. Finally, Saratobi turned his attention back to the accounts. I appreciate the disclosure of your concerns, he said, but this proposition is extreme, given the circumstances. The tuning section in exams were served to strengthen the relationships between allied nations. It would be rash of us to break that promise, regardless of whether your claims are true. The other council members nodded silently aside. Oh no, he was declining. They were all declining. Now they probably thought she was a lunatic, and the Hokage and village members weren't going to help her stop this war. She had to stop it herself. But she hadn't had the slightest investigation where to begin. Could it hurt to conduct a brief investigation? A new voice emerged from behind Sakura, near the doorway, giving her a start. She hadn't even noticed the new presence in her room. She spun around when she caught sight of the new arrival. Her already heightened nerves went into overdrive. It was Kakashi. Sensei! She choked out, feeling her hands tremble. What are you doing here? Kakashi abandoned his position of leaning on the door frame and sauntered towards the couch, hand in his pocket. A supposed eye was staring icily at the council table, ignoring Sakura entirely. I'm here to find out why no one bothered to tell me that my stone was being brought before the High Council. He was greeted by silence. Sakura knows Ayami streaked back into the couch. Are you suggesting I can't take care of my students? He asked casually, though his voice was laced with a sinister undertone. Of course not, Kakashi. Hokage answered at once, lowering his hands to place them on the desk. The anger in Kakashi's eyes seemed to subside then. but he still held firm as only an idiot might dare cross. Someone like Naruto. Sakura thought with an untimely urge to chuckle. Good, he said dismissively. Now, if you don't mind, I will escort Sakura to the academy so she can register for the junior with her teammates. Wait, Sensei, Sakura said, getting to her feet. I can't. Kasi finally turned to look at her. His visible eye looked tired. It's out of your hands now, Sakura, he said, shrugging. If what I conclude from this situation here is true, you are simply summoned to prove you are indeed a prodigy. A fact I can strongly attest to. He paused. I slowly returned to the council members. It would be foolish to pretend we haven't always had our suspicions about the Sound Village. And if I learned anything since I became Sakura's teacher, it's that she has a knack for making seemingly irrational decisions that, almost always, turn out being right. The room was silent. Sakura was flabbergasted. Let's go. And that was how a rather delirious Sakura wound up strolling along the village streets with her teacher, being dismissed from prison and into High Council's conference room. She hadn't a clue what to say now. Surprisingly, Kakashi seemed to believe her far-fetched proposal. Considering his high rep in the village, having his confidence might end up saving her ass. But why did he believe her? I take it that you trust me, Sensei? Sakura asked, breaking the long silence and shooting him a hesitant sideways glance. Do I have a reason not to? He answered without peeling his eyes from the road. You're a smart kid. It would be foolish of me to pretend that you haven't noticed something unusual about you. Sakura gulped, anxiously waiting for him to elaborate. You seem to have predictive abilities that don't always make sense in the moment, but tend to keep Team 7 out of danger. I have my hunches about what's going on with you. I don't think you mean to cause any trouble. So as long as you prioritize the squad, I'll trust you. His visible eyes sifted in her direction. Inexplicably, Sakura had the urge to cry. Since Sakura's parents were civilians, Kakashi hadn't become a parent figure through her years as a young ninja. Having his trust, at least to some extent, felt like a piece of her he didn't even know was missing had been returned. Nevertheless, Kakashi admitted that he found her unusual. He probably knew more about her predicament than he was laying on, but at least there was hope he might forge some sort of relationship again. Thank you, Sakura stammered out, somewhat sure she could say. Kakashi merely shrugged in response. Well, you better hurry on in there, he said, nodding towards the academy doors. When Sakura hadn't realized they arrived yet. The boys have been complaining about your absence all afternoon. So please go and find them. Save me an earful. Sakura's stomach gave such an uncomfortable lurch. She couldn't register for the exams. Not yet. But Kakashi-sensei, I can't. What about the Sound Village? She said hurriedly, mind bubbling with panic. The tuning exams weren't any safer now than they were before. Surprised, Kakashi stretched a hand towards her and ruffled her hair affectionately. Sakura's body seized the familiar gesture. We'll just have to wait and see. Sprinting pell-mell through the crowded hallways, and after what felt like an eternity, Sakura finally caught sight of just the official she was looking for. Naruto! Sasuke! Wait! She cried, while pushing her way through a small crowd of grass dancers. Sound their names, both boys rolled around. Sakura-chan! Naruto bellowed back, biting his hands on his hips. Where the hell have you been? We just found out that we could only register in teams of 3. And honestly, if you hadn't turned up in 5 more minutes, I would have forged your signature and registered you myself. Believe it! Yeah, with a pout. But you haven't registered yet, have you? She asked between heavy breaths, hunching forward to rest her hands on her bent knees. Not yet. Sasuke answered while folding his arms and staring at her through narrowed eyes. And not until you explained what happened back there, after the restaurant. Sakura exhaled deeply, straightened up. Right. He deserved an update on why their mock deal was interrupted so mysteriously. Also, if I could stall them long enough, we might miss the registration deadline altogether. Wait, what restaurant? Naruto interjected, but glaring suspiciously at his teammate. Why wasn't I invited? Sasuke rolled his eyes. Butt out of this, dumbass, he snapped. This comment since it had the opposite effect on the feisty blonde ninja. If my teammates are going to go sneaking off to make out, it sure as hell is my business, he boomed, drawing the attention of nearby groups. As unlikely as this might sound, one day on a mission, I might need help from you, Sasuke. If you could gain sidetrack, my life could be on the line. Onlookers were actually listening in on heated exchange now. Sasuke's eyebrow was distinctly twitching on his face with color, probably due to some mixture of rage and embarrassment. Naruto, you're dead, Sasuke growled. Sakura, on the other hand, was hardly paying attention. She cast a quick glance at her pocket watch and discovered he only had to kill about 2 more minutes. That was when an automated voice broke out the intercom system. May I have your attention, please? Rang out the voice. After a few seconds of static and high-pitched ringing, Sakura jumped. She didn't remember anything close to this happening in her own life. This year's Chunin Executive Syllabus has been delayed by 1 week. I repeat, this year's Chunin Selection Exam has been delayed by 1 week. Reservation deadline has not been changed. You still need to register. Please do immediately. Thank you. Though another physical static, the voice disappeared and clattering resumed. Sakura's heart stopped. The exams were delayed? Could it honestly be that the High Council members listened to her and Kakashi after all? Were they going through with a Sound Village investigation? Sakura was suddenly overcome with a giddy excitement she hadn't felt in years. Maybe things were, in fact, against all odds, going to work out in her favor. Maybe, just maybe, the Sound Village would be thrown out and exams would be made safe. How nice would be to unleash the full extent of her new powers, to actually achieve a tuning exam status this time around, get the promotion at the hospital she was entitled to. Boys, Sakura announced as she lashed herself onto their arms. Were you listening? We have to register immediately. Hurry up!